35 NIH accredited Alzheimer's disease research centers in the country. And this is something that we have to reapply and recompete for every 5 years. So all 35 of these centers have to maintain really rigorous standards for maintaining that designation and continue to prove that we're doing that every 5 years. So we're really proud to be one of the official Alzheimer's disease research centers right here in Kansas City. And we do a lot. We offer many community resources, and of course, we do a lot of research. So that's our primary role, of course, is Alzheimer's research and brain health research, including other types of dementia. And I'll talk a little bit about different types of dementia here in a minute. But we have several different types of studies, and they're always changing. And I'm not going to talk much about our research after this slide, but I just want you to know that we have medication studies, lifestyle studies, studies where you don't have to do anything besides just check in regularly. Um, and everything in between. So it's fluctuating all the time. We have, new studies starting, old studies closing. So if you are interested in participating in any type of Alzheimer's disease or brain health research, please don't hesitate to reach out. And even if we don't have a study for you right now, we may have studies that you might be interested in the future. So lots of really cool research going on. And our specialty in the Alzheimer's world is metabolism and mitochondria, which is the powerhouse of our cell. So how our bodies generate energy from fuel and also exercise and lifestyle. So we do a whole bunch of different things, but those are kind of our specialty areas in the research world. And then we also have community resources, including our LEAP program, which is what I'm going to tell you more about today, Lifestyle Empowerment for Alzheimer's Prevention. And this program is just community education to help empower all of you to learn more about what you can do to support your brain health. And then we also have our My Alliance program, which is weekly emails and weekly webinars with information on all kinds of things. Sometimes we have research updates from our scientists. Sometimes we have community, different members of the community talk about their experience with Alzheimer's or resources that might be available to caregivers or all kinds of different things. So lots and lots of different topics in our weekly My Alliance webinars. We have support groups for several different types of dementia, different situations, depending on if you are a patient or a caregiver. Several different support groups. There's virtual, there's in person. We have many different educational events, and we have Mindful Minutes on our YouTube channel, which is a resource for could be helpful for anybody, but it's primarily targeted towards caregivers. So lots of different resources, and don't hesitate to reach out to us if you have questions about any of those. We are more than happy to help. A little bit more about the LEAP program. So this program is designed or created to take biomedical research findings. So all of the new science that's coming out every single day and turn that into everyday strategies that you can use in real life. Sometimes that process from, the scientists to normal people trying to be healthier takes a really, really long time. So our goal is to speed that up and get you the most up-to-date information so that you can make changes to your lifestyle that are impactful and help improve your brain health. So we have a brain health bootcamp program, which I'll tell you more about in a little while. We have free webinars. We have a Mediterranean diet course. We have a free booklet that if you like what you hear today, the booklet kind of has all of that in written form with a little bit more detail. So you might like that. There's a digital version on our website that's free to flip through. So take a look at that if you're interested. Okay, so let's talk about dementia. Dementia is an umbrella term describing many conditions that cause changes in memory and thinking. So, this is one of the most common questions we get. What's the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia? And sometimes people will say that, oh, I've been diagnosed with dementia, or my loved one has been diagnosed with dementia. Dementia is more of uh again an umbrella term for the symptoms that we experience. It's not a specific disease. So Alzheimer's is actually the cause or the type of dementia. It's a specific type. And there are several different types. So frontotemporal dementia, Lewy body dementia, vascular dementia, those would all be examples of other types of dementia. And so Alzheimer's is the most common type. It accounts for about 60 to 80% of cases. You can also have overlap. You might have two different types at the same time. So there can sometimes be it can sometimes be a little bit tricky to figure out those different types, but Alzheimer's is the most common by far. So, a little just sort of update on kind of where we are now with Alzheimer's in general. So, we more and more every day are able to diagnose accurately and early. So it used to be that it was just sort of a guess that somebody had Alzheimer's, and we couldn't confirm it until autopsy. And we still do require the autopsy for that 100% confirmation, but we've gotten to the point where uh, we can diagnose much better, very accurately, very early, much earlier in the process. And we have new diagnostic tools that we didn't have before, including some blood tests that you may have heard about in the news. Those have just become available clinically in the last year, maybe two. I want to say it's only been about a year that just a regular doctor could order this blood test. It's called p-tau 217, and it can help us see how much amyloid there might be. And I'll talk a little bit more about amyloid. It's one of the hallmarks of Alzheimer's disease in the brain. It's not to the point where we can use it as a screening tool. So it doesn't give us enough information to where you could go to the doctor and say, hey, check this blood test. I don't have any symptoms, but I want to know if this blood test is elevated. It's not helpful in that way, but it is helpful to confirm diagnosis when we suspect. So when we already see that there are changes and we suspect that they may be related to Alzheimer's, it can help confirm diagnosis. There are other blood tests in the works. There are new applications for this blood test. They're testing how to use it in all kinds of different ways. I was talking to a colleague the other day about exploring the possibility of even being able to test it without having to do a blood draw. So lots of really exciting things coming with testing, biomarkers, blood biomarkers, not having to rely so heavily on things like lumbar punctures and imaging, although those are certainly still helpful and important. But we look forward to, in the very near future, being able to use more and more of these blood tests. So that's a really exciting development that's just happened in the last handful of years. And we don't have a cure yet, unfortunately, but we do have helpful treatments, including new medications that have come out in the last 5-ish years that are particularly useful, if not exclusively useful, in the early stages, which means that early detection and talking to your doctor quickly anytime you might notice some changes is more important than ever. It's always been important, but it's more important than ever because some of those new medications only work when you catch it early. And then, of course, we know that lifestyle changes are really impactful to reduce our risk of developing Alzheimer's and to slow cognitive decline, whether it's age-related cognitive decline or even slow down the process of how dementia or Alzheimer's disease progresses. So lifestyle can be really, really impactful for that. Um, we would love to be able to diagnose before symptom onset so that we can intervene faster and hopefully have more of an impact. And we are absolutely headed in that direction, especially with all of these blood biomarkers. We're really excited about the potential to be able to do that more effectively in the future. And then, of course, we would love to be able to halt or completely reverse the disease process. We're not there yet, but we're working on it and prevent or delay onset. Stop it completely. So very exciting time in the Alzheimer's world. Lots of new developments coming. So I hope you feel encouraged and empowered to know that the science is really advancing in this area. But we are here today to focus on lifestyle and what you can do in your everyday life to improve your brain health, reduce risk, slow cognitive decline. So some things to keep in mind are common risk factors for Alzheimer's disease and cognitive decline in general. And those would be depression or anxiety, traumatic brain injury, high blood pressure, heart disease, sleep apnea, and diabetes. These are not the only risk factors, but they're just some big ones to be aware of, and they're also very common. So many of you may be experiencing one or more of these, and so I just want you to feel encouraged that you can minimize the impact that these things have on your brain by working with your doctor to manage them. So, for example, diabetes, working with your doctor to take the appropriate medications, monitoring your blood sugar to keep that in a healthy range, modifying your diet, modifying your exercise habits, those types of things that can help with diabetes management can also minimize the effect that the diabetes will have on your brain health and support your brain health as well. So just an example, but with all of these, there are things that we can do to manage these diseases effectively and support our brain health in the process. The exception there would be traumatic brain injury. Usually that's not something that we plan or intend to happen. So, just working with your doctor to manage the fallout from that as best you can. But I know that can be a really stressful thing. So everything else on this list is something that we can manage even after it already exists. Okay. So in terms of our lifestyle habits, we focus on six key goals, six key different lifestyle factors that we really want you to prioritize. So number one is move more. This is your general physical activity and movement throughout the day. I'm going to talk more about that. Number two is get fit. This is working out. So doing things that help to improve your aerobic fitness, your muscle strength, that type of thing. We'll talk more about that as well. Number three, eat healthy. Number four, sleep well. Number five, stay connected, both socially and cognitively. So we're talking here about social connections that you may have with friends, family, in group settings, as well as keeping your mind challenged on a regular basis. And then number six is manage stress and mental health. And we'll talk more about every single one of these. Couple of quick research highlights, just so you have an idea of how impactful these lifestyle changes can be. This um, slide here is looking at what was called the Lancet. What do they call it? The Lancet Standing Commission report on dementia prevention, intervention, and care from 2024. And they do this every 4 or 5 years, maybe a little less than that, where they sort of look at, here's the state of all the evidence and what we know, um, very big picture, what we can do about dementia and Alzheimer's. And so they identified 14 risk factors that can be addressed across the lifespan and sort of assigned them an estimated percentage of impact in terms of risk, and also kind of looking at when in life, we might address those things. Now, just because, something like hearing loss and cholesterol might be in the midlife section, I know this is really, really tiny. It's okay if you if you can't see it. Um, just because something like hearing loss or cholesterol might be in the midlife section does not mean that it's too late if you don't address it until you're past midlife. But those are things that may start to happen in midlife that we could address. Um, the exception to that would certainly be early childhood education. We can't go back in time and fix that one, but we can keep that in mind for the little people in our lives, that education is important and does have an impact on long-term brain health, including our risk of developing dementia as we age. So all of these things are things that we can work on. So um, or things to be aware of. So they estimated that if we addressed these 14 factors worldwide, so on a sort of a global population level, we could prevent or delay 45% of dementia cases, which would be, absolutely massive. Um, and their assessment was that we should be ambitious about prevention. And even though addressing risk factors at an early stage is ideal, it's desirable, there's also a benefit from tackling any of these things throughout life. It's never too late. It's never too early. So today is the best day to get started. Um, so I won't go through all of these things. Some of them are more medical, like hypertension or high blood pressure. Some of them are more environmental, like air pollution. But a lot of the, more medical and lifestyle things are things that we can address in our everyday life. Smoking, our activity levels, our social activity, those types of things. Wearing glasses if we have vision issues, etc. Another recent, really cool study was the US pointer study. So you may have heard of this one. You may have also heard of the finger trial, which was a similar study that happened in Europe. And this is basically just looking at a multi-domain, so um, multiple different areas of life: exercise, nutrition, sleep, stress, cognitive activity, etc. So those different domains. Um, and what happens when they do an intervention to improve those areas of people's lives. So um, this particular study emphasized exercise. They had regular health check-ins. They did cognitive training through a program called Brain HQ. So very specific evidence-based brain games. Not all brain games are evidence-based. We can talk more about that if you want, but this was a specific program that was more evidence-based. And then they specifically used the MIND diet, which is similar to the Mediterranean diet. And I can talk more about that as well. And they had two different groups. They had a group that got a really intensive uh, program with a lot of support from health coaches and group meetings, and between all of these different things, personal trainers, the whole thing, lots and lots of support. And between all of this, I think I estimated that the participants were investing about 4 to 5 hours per week in the program, including the time they were spending exercising, not including the time they were spending working on their nutrition and diet habits. So it was really a pretty intensive intervention. And then the second group is a self-guided group that got the same information, but much lighter support. They just had occasional meetings. They did not get personal training. They were encouraged to apply what they were learning to their lives, but they didn't get nearly as much um, of that intense hands-on support. And excitingly, both groups saw significant improvements in their cognition or lack of decline. in cognition that you would expect to happen over a 2 year period. The high intervention, the high level of intensity group saw slightly better results, but the group that put much less effort into it and it wasn't such an intensive intervention also saw really good results from applying these lifestyle interventions. So what I want you to take away from this is that it does not have to be um, all or nothing to see results. And this is borne out in more detail in many of the other studies looking at more specific lifestyle habits. Um, you can improve your brain health without doing all the things. We want to start small and gradually build upon those healthy habits. And that's a good thing. We're still going to see even those small changes can make a difference in our brain health and our cognition. And of course, those are stepping stones to even bigger habits. But even if you stay there, or even bigger habit changes, but even if you stay there with those small changes, you can still see benefits from those things. So let's talk a little more about each of those areas. And I will speed up so we have time for Q&A. So physical activity, we separate this from exercise for a very important reason. And that is because sedentary time independently from our workouts. So let's say you have 30 minutes to an hour where you do a structured workout. You go to the gym, you lift weights, you run on the treadmill, whatever you do at the gym for 30 minutes to an hour on any given day. The impact that sitting down the whole rest of the day has on your health um, is still there, regardless of whether or not you do that workout. So of course, the workout's important. We're going to talk about how important the exercise is here in a second. But when we think about physical activity, what we really want to think about is reducing our sedentary time, reducing how much time we're spending sitting down, and maximizing how much time we're just getting that general movement throughout the day. So walking around your house or office or going for a walk outside or doing chores or whatever it might be that just gets you up and moving. Breaking up that sedentary time throughout the day is really important. So when you think about like getting your steps in, that's kind of where this is the area where that is helpful. And if you have an activity tracker, great. Some people find those to be really helpful. Some people don't. So you can kind of, if you don't have one already, think about that before you buy one. They do have really, really cheap options now, though. But we want to aim for, if you do have an activity tracker, the target is at least like 7,000 steps. But even better if we can get closer to 10,000. But you can still see benefits around 3,000 steps. So even if you only get up to 3,000 steps, that's still better than a lower number. So we just want to gradually work towards increasing that. Um, and then thinking about sort of your schedule and how you structure your day, we want to try to break up our sedentary time so that we get at least light physical activity every 20 to 30 minutes of sitting. Standing up doesn't necessarily work in terms of counting for that movement. We want to get our muscles moving a little more. We want to get our blood flowing a little bit more than that when we're trying to break up that sedentary time. It's still probably better than sitting, but ideally we're moving around a little bit more than that for at least a couple minutes anytime we're sitting. So I've been talking to you now for 30 minutes. I can't really see any of you. Even if I could, it wouldn't matter. This is a great time to stand up and move around a little bit, march in place, pace the room, do a couple mini squats, whatever you want to do. But this is a great time to get up and move around a little bit. So think about your schedule and how you can work those little movement breaks in throughout the day so that you aren't sitting all day long if that's something that you're prone to do. I have a desk job. I work from home, so I really have to work to make those movement breaks happen. Okay. Next is get fit. So this is our structured exercise. This is probably the area with the strongest evidence supporting its impact on brain health, particularly in the area of aerobic exercise. So when we improve our cardiorespiratory fitness, so our heart and lung capacity and our ability to perform aerobic or endurance exercises, so that could be things like brisk walking, jogging, cycling, um, Zumba or dance aerobic type exercises, swimming, all of those things, water aerobics, 1,000 different ways to get aerobic exercise. We're trying to get our heart rate and our breathing rate up at least a little bit. And as we improve our aerobic fitness, that can have one of the biggest impacts on our brain health, even in the short term, even in as little as like 6 months. In some studies, they see improvement in cognitive performance. So, including in people who have already been diagnosed with dementia. So, definitely a really important one. So, aerobic exercise, I think of as sort of um, the quicker way to see some brain impacts. We of course want to maintain that in the long term, really important. But then strength training can also have some really important impacts on our overall metabolic health, so our ability to regulate our energy in a healthy way, as well as our bone health and so many different things that strength training is beneficial for. Strength training takes longer to see results and have impact, but it is very, very important for brain health, for overall health, so many different benefits to strength training. So those are the two types of exercise that most directly impact the brain. We also want to include flexibility and balance training just for or mobility, just for general health and injury prevention and those types of things. But strength training and aerobic exercise can have the biggest impact on our brains. We're aiming for 150 minutes per week of moderate intensity aerobic exercise. You can do less if you're doing higher intensity aerobic exercise if you want. And then at least 2 to 3 days per week of strength training per major muscle group. So you want to target um, any particular muscle, any particular group of muscles at least twice in a week to stimulate muscle growth. It's more complicated than that, but that's the target is 2 to 3 days per week, and then daily balance and flexibility. Simple change would be to start with a short brisk walk, brisk enough to get your heart rate up a little bit. And that's something that we can often work into our regular routine a little bit more easily than, say, getting a gym membership. But that's a really good place to start. Eat healthy. So we have an entire 4 week course on eating healthy and brain healthy eating habits. So, of course, this is going to be a really, really basic overview, but we want to emphasize fruits and veggies, whole foods, whole grains over refined grains. We want to choose healthy fats like olive oil and avocados, lean protein and low fat dairy. Doesn't always have to be low fat dairy. It depends on how much dairy you're eating, but um, those things can be good choices. And then limiting processed food and sugar. And the three sort of overarching themes that I want you to think about when it comes to brain healthy eating are right here. These three that you see here. So nutrient density, we want to make sure that the foods that we eat are packed with nutrients. So not necessarily just calories, but vitamins, minerals, phytonutrients like antioxidants and those types of things that help to support our brain health and reduce inflammation, support our immune systems and our metabolisms and all of those things that um, give us the tools, give our bodies the tools that we need to support long-term brain health. This is going to happen primarily by eating lots of fruits and vegetables. Those are the most nutrient dense foods that we have. So that's why you'll notice over here that we recommend half a plate of non-starchy vegetables, at least at lunch and dinner. If you can get them in at breakfast too, that's great. But at least lunch and dinner, we want half a plate, aiming for half a plate of non-starchy vegetables. We also want to eat meals and snacks that are low glycemic, and this means that they help to support healthy blood sugar regulation. Um, our metabolism, so how our body burns fuel for energy and how our body regulates blood sugar, are really, really important for brain health. They're important for a lot of things, but brain health is a big one. And so by choosing low glycemic um, foods and low glycemic meals, we can support better blood sugar regulation and better long-term brain health. And there's a lot to that, but one of the ways that we do that is by making sure our meals are balanced with protein and fiber and healthy fats and lots of veggies. And like I said, we spend 4 weeks on this topic, so I can't cover all of it today, but those are just some things to keep in mind. When in doubt, just make sure you've got protein at every meal and snack, and that's a really good place to start. And then we also want to make sure that our food is rich in healthy fats. We are not trying to limit or avoid fat. There's a pretty wide range of sort of the amounts of fat that can be healthy for different people, and it can vary from person to person. But generally, we're not, unless you have some sort of digestive issue or condition where you can't process much fat. Most people, we don't want to be seeking out a low fat diet. It doesn't have to be high fat, but we don't want to be avoiding fat either. We want to choose healthy fats like nuts, seeds, olive oil, fish, avocados, etc. If you want something to change really quickly with your diet, look for some of these particularly nutrient dense brain superfoods like blueberries, kale, onions, salmon, and extra virgin olive oil. And those are great ones to work into your diet that you can start right away. Okay, sleep. I'm gonna cover sleep just really quickly. Cover the next three just really quickly to make sure we have time for Q&A. Um, there's a lot we can do to improve our sleep quality. Of course, we all would love to sleep well. It's um, easier said than done sometimes to get good sleep, but chronic poor sleep, whether it is just not getting enough sleep or getting sleep that is poor quality, you don't wake rested, you are frequently up in the middle of the night. Those things can have an impact on our immediate brain health. I mean, we've all experienced, bad night of sleep, and then the next day you've got brain fog, you're not thinking as clearly, you're more stressed, more anxious, it's harder to make decisions. Um, so there's that immediate impact, but there's also a long-term impact on our metabolism and our brain health. So we want to do things that help support sleep quality as best we can. And we want to make sure that we talk with our doctors if we suspect there could be any kind of sleep disorder, or if we've been doing the things that we're supposed to be in terms of supporting good sleep quality and it's not working. Make sure you talk to your doctor about that. But um, our bodies love patterns. And specifically with sleep, we want to try to optimize our sleep wake cycle or our circadian rhythm. And this is very responsive to light exposure. So when it's dark, that stimulates melatonin production. And when it's light, that stimulates cortisol production. Cortisol is a stress hormone, but it's also the hormone that wakes us up in the morning and gets us going for the day. And so optimizing our light exposure by making it dark at night and limiting screen time at night, as well as bright light exposure in the morning, getting some sunshine. And if it's, winter time and there isn't a whole lot of sunshine in the morning, turning on some bright lights in your house as best you can. Those things can be helpful. Having a really consistent routine, going to bed and getting up at the same time every morning, trying to optimize your sleep environment. So making sure the temperature is comfortable, um, the sound, there's no random lights or night lights and things that might keep you awake at night. Those things can all have a big impact. When it comes to social and cognitive engagement, there's really not a one size fits all. With social engagement, we want to make sure that we are pursuing and maintaining meaningful connections with people in our lives, so meaningful relationships. We get benefit both from those close, supportive relationships and also from group interactions. There's a handful of different benefits to group interactions, but one of them is the cognitive stimulation that it requires to um, talk to different people in a group and just, process that whole experience where you're interacting with a lot of different people in a group. Um, and then with cognitive engagement, we're trying to challenge our mind regularly. So this doesn't mean that you need to do crossword puzzles every day. There are some brain game type activities that can be helpful, but it's more helpful to build skills that are useful in your everyday life, or learn new hobbies. Music and language can be really beneficial. So learning new skills, building on old skills or learning new skills is particularly beneficial to stimulating your brain. But the key is that it's challenging for you. In a way that you're going to enjoy, in a way that you can, continue to implement in your life. You don't want it to be grueling and stressful. We want it to be challenging and stimulating and fun. So hobbies are a great way to do this in everyday life, but it can even be just planning a trip or something like that can be a good way to get cognitive stimulation. Okay, stress and mental health. This is another one that's easier said than done. And I think many of us have heard all kinds of different stress management techniques, meditation and deep breathing, and those things can be really helpful. Exercise is also good for stress and mental health, time in nature, working with a therapist. If you're having a hard time managing stress, you do not have to have a diagnosed condition to work with a therapist. It can still be really helpful just for dealing with stress if you're having a hard time with that. But what I really want you to take away from this, just because stress, how we manage stress and mental health can vary so much from person to person. What I really want you to take away here is that it matters and it's worth prioritizing, and it's it's worth it. This is not an extra thing. It's not selfish um, to make sure that you're getting enough rest and getting mental health support. And those things aren't selfish. There's so much evidence suggesting that these things matter for our brain health, for our overall health, and they are absolutely worth prioritizing. I know that's easier said than done. Okay, I think I finished just in time for to make sure we can go through the questions. I think there looks like there's quite a few questions. We have more webinars and resources and things coming up. So I just want to point you in that direction really quick before we switch over to Q&A. So we have a webinar on the 28th, if you would like to sign up for that, called Building Your Brain Healthy 2026. And that will be presented by Rosie Pasqualini, another fantastic member of the LEAP team. And she's going to focus on, I believe it's a little bit more of like a goal setting emphasis for this webinar. And registration for that is open on our website. So you can check that out, and I'll show our website here in just a second. And maybe Rosie can put the link in the chat. And then we also have our Brain Health Boot Camp, which starts tomorrow, actually. So really soon at 10 o'clock. And this is a 6-week course that goes into a lot more depth on each of those six factors that I shared with you. We spend an entire hour covering each of those. So um, that starts tomorrow. There's live Zoom calls, but you can watch the recordings if you're not able to attend the live Zoom calls, downloads, resources, links, additional exercise videos, all kinds of stuff, recipes, lots and lots of helpful tools for you. If and it's $30, but there's a code to get 25% off. So it's the code New Year's here in the corner over here. And making sure this program is accessible to everyone is really, really important to us. So we are also happy to waive the fee in cases of financial need. So please just send us an email if you um, need that, and we're happy to help. And okay, that's it. There, I'm going to leave my slide up here so you can see the website and our email if you need to contact us. And then I'm going to start in the chat. If you have a question, um, go ahead and put it in the chat. I think that'll probably be easier than unmuting. But Grace, let me know if you have a different process. And then if we have time after we get through all the chat questions, maybe we can do some video questions. But I'm going to go through the chat questions here first. There's a question about the recording, and yes, Grace answered that a recording will be available within 2 weeks.
Yes, we will send out the recording. And there was a question a little further down about the links that were provided in the chat. Those will also go out with the recording. So you will have access to those links if you didn't get them saved.
Thank you. Perfect. Um, okay, what is the contact for participating in studies was another question, and Rosie put a link in the chat to submit a research interest form. And then you can also read about our currently enrolling studies on our website. So Rosie put those links in the chat. If you want to, if anybody else is interested, just scroll up in the chat and you can find those links. Um, um, oh, some questions. I think maybe I'm not seeing all the questions. I'm not sure. I'm seeing a few of the questions, but not all of them. Because I see answers. Let me see. TBI, question about TBI. So TBI stands for traumatic brain injury. Um, and then there's a question about an upper age cutoff for participating in studies. Um, it depends on the study. So each study decides, depending on what they're looking at, what the age range is. So it depends. I feel like we have several studies, and I think Rosie put this in the chat as well, that cut off at 85. But it's again, it varies from study to study. So um, it should say that if you look at our currently enrolling studies guide on our website, it should say what the age range is for the study. Um, Oh, and thank you. Rosie put the link to our Mediterranean diet self-paced course in the chat. So that one is pre-recorded. You can sign up at any time and just watch the recordings if you would like to do the Mediterranean diet course. We will have a live Mediterranean diet course starting later in the spring. But there is a pre-recorded one you can see right now. Question about if it makes a difference if the salmon is farm raised compared to wild. So different types of salmon have different levels of omega-3s. And unfortunately, just farm versus just wild doesn't quite tell us how much omega-3 is in the salmon. Some types of farmed salmon actually have higher amounts of omega-3s than wild salmon. Um, And then wild salmon has higher amounts of omega-3s than some types of farmed salmon. So it varies a little bit. For the most part, any type of salmon is better than none. You're going to get a good amount of omega-3s, regardless of what type of salmon you choose. From an environment standpoint and a toxin standpoint in the fish, um, I actually am not sure which one is better. If you would like to learn more about environmental impacts of different farming practices, there's a really good website called seafoodwatch.org that's by the Monterey Bay Aquarium, and they have a really detailed breakdown of different types of salmon and how they're farmed and which ones of those are better in terms of um, environment and sustainability, sustainable fishing and all of that. But from an omega-3 standpoint, either one is fine, either farmed or wild. Does insurance cover the p-tau 217? I've seen a couple messages in the chat saying that some insurances do, including Medicare. I do not know. I am not sure personally one way or another, but it sounds like others have had experience with that being covered. Um,
Got
okay, link for
another.
boot camp. Oh, go ahead, Grace.
Oh, sorry, I had another nutrition question pop up. Someone asked, are cooked vegetables just as nutrient rich as raw? And does a microwave destroy nutrients?
Great question. So cooking does destroy some nutrients. Some nutrients are more vulnerable to heat than others. So like vitamin C, for example, degrades very, very quickly with heat. Any amount of cooking is going to destroy nearly all of the vitamin C in a food, whereas other nutrients like any mineral, for example, is totally fine with heat. Cooking can also make some foods more digestible. So this is particularly important with things like um, our cruciferous veggies, which are really fantastic for brain health, but they can be a little hard to digest. So like our kale and Brussels sprouts and broccoli, this group is nicknamed the gassy vegetables for a reason. They can be a little bit harder to digest, and so cooking can help with that. So there are pros and cons to cooking, and there isn't one right way. In general, we want to make sure that we're cooking as little as possible. So when we cook a food, when we cook produce, we don't want to cook it to mush. We don't want it to be super duper soft unless we need it that way for like a mechanical, and like let's say you have a chewing concern, that would be a good reason to cook it really soft. And that's totally fine. Ideally, when we cook food, it's still going to be al dente or tender crisp. So still relatively firm. But we want it to taste good too, right? We want it to be something that's yummy, that we're going to enjoy eating, that we're going to continue to eat to hit our half a plate. And so we have a lot of flexibility in how we do that. So I usually encourage people to get a mix of raw and cooked veggies to try to cover your bases with vitamin C food, especially if you're trying to boost your vitamin C levels. Let's say we're in the middle of a really bad flu season right now, and maybe you want to boost your vitamin C. You do need to make sure those foods are raw if you want to get that vitamin C benefit. So citrus, bell peppers, strawberries. Um, those would be examples of some vitamin C foods that you would want to have raw. But in general, cooking is okay. It does destroy some nutrients, but not all of the nutrients. We want to cook as little as we can, and the food is still enjoyable and digestible for us. And we want to get a mix of um, raw and cooked produce. Microwaving does not destroy nutrients any more than any other type of cooking. So it's just, how hot does it get? How long do you cook it? So in that sense, the microwave is faster. But let's say you want to steam some broccoli. whether you get it to the same texture, like the same amount of firmness, whether you steam it on the stove or steam it in the microwave, it's going to be pretty comparable. So don't stress over that. It's okay to microwave. Um, Somebody asked about the link for Brain Health Bootcamp. I think Rosie put that in the chat, but if not, if you just go to our website right here, kubrainhealth.org/leap, it is right there on that page. Another question about how long your sitting break should last. About 2 minutes is the goal. If you can do longer than that, that's great. But like, let's say you're, between meetings and you're trying to juggle everything and just get that little movement break in real quick. 2 minutes every 20 to 30 minutes is the goal. Are these tips all helpful for somebody who is already diagnosed with early Alzheimer's? Absolutely. Um, so I'm not going to promise that it's going to cure anything, but there is a lot of good evidence that healthy lifestyle habits can help to slow decline and can help improve quality of life. So, yes, absolutely, absolutely still helpful for somebody who has already been diagnosed. Um, More info on the mind diet. So the the Mediterranean diet class that we teach is very similar to the Mind diet. So if you want to learn more about sort of what's recommended for brain healthy eating, that's a really great place to do that. And we do cover some of that in Brain Health Bootcamp as well. We only spend 2 weeks on nutrition and brain health bootcamp instead of four, but either way is a great way to address that. In terms of specifically the Mind diet, I don't have a specific link off the top of my head. I could certainly find one, but there's lots and lots of information on the Mind diet online. But our classes are very similar to the Mind diet. Somebody said they couldn't hear me. That was about 10 minutes ago though, so I'm not, hopefully that's you can hear me now. I will I don't know if Rosie or Grace, if you saw that and were able to help with that. Um, if we're in our 40s and worried about brain health, is there another test we should be getting to catch it early, or is it just p-tau 217? So p-tau 217, unfortunately, is not yet at a place where it's good for catching Alzheimer's early. It does seem like we may be able to use it in that way at some point in the future, but we're not quite there yet. So in your 40s, I do not recommend going to ask your doctor to run p-tau 217 as a screening tool. It just doesn't, it's not been validated to use in that way, and we don't have a good um, standardized process for interpreting it in that way. So sit tight. It's advancing quickly. So I think we'll get to that point when there's more helpful blood tests like that for early stages. If you're in your 40s and you're just wanting to optimize your brain health, think more about things related to your cardiovascular health and your metabolism. So making sure that your cholesterol levels are healthy, making sure that you're exercising regularly, blood sugar related labs. So your fasting blood glucose, your hemoglobin A1C. And I always like to get a fasting insulin. Some doctors aren't willing to do that, but fasting insulin tends to be one of the first to start creeping up when you have a blood sugar uh, if your body's starting to struggle to regulate blood sugar. So if you're developing what we call insulin resistance, that is really important to target as early as it starts to happen. So those types of things are what you want to go after in your 40s. Not p-tau 217, at least not how we understand it today. That may change in 5 years. Maybe it'll be a screening tool early on. in a few years, but right now we don't have that. But it doesn't work that way. So focus more on those foundational health things, and you'll be in a really good place. Can we get a copy of the PowerPoint slides? We usually do not share the PowerPoint slides, but you'll have access to the recording. Um, once they send that out, so you'll be able to check that out. And then we also have the booklet. So if you want a written version of all of this, you can check out the Simple Steps booklet on our website. That is free. You can't download it, but you can flip through it and read it on the website. Okay, it looks like we have a lot more questions and we're at time. I am happy to stick around and continue answering questions. Grace, I don't know if you have a hard stop at 11 or if you want me to keep going. I am totally fine either way.
Yeah, we can stay on. We'll continue recording, and if anyone needs to hop off, that is okay. We will send the full recording. But yeah, we're good to hang
Okay,
out for a bit.
okay, awesome. Um, Next question, is reading good for cognitive health? It's certainly not bad. And if you enjoy reading, that's great. Whether or not it's going to help preserve your brain health in the sense of cognitive stimulation, probably depends on how challenging it is for you. And that, could probably vary from book to book. So like if you're reading a really, light beach read novel, that's probably less likely to provide the cognitive stimulation that's going to help preserve your brain health over time as compared to something that's a little bit more challenging. But that doesn't mean that it's bad to read for fun. It's absolutely not. I mean that's great for stress and relaxation and all kinds of things too. And I'm sure it provides some benefit, but it's probably not stimulating enough to provide a strong protective effect compared to something like learning new skills, music, language, maybe reading something that's significantly more challenging. I don't know, Rosie, if you have any other thoughts or agree, disagree on that one. Rosie's more of our cognitive engagement expert
Yeah,
here.
reading is great. In general, when we talk about cognitive engagement, we focus on what Rachel mentioned, which is making sure that we're being sufficiently challenged, that you're having fun, but that also you feel that your brain is working without it being too difficult. So reading is a great way to get some of that. If you can kind of calibrate your reading material or duration to your challenge level. The other thing that is really important when it comes to cognitive stimulation and keeping your brain healthy is going to be variety. So, research really suggests that getting a variety of mental stimulation throughout the day is probably more important than, say, getting more intensely into one specific hobby. We already get a lot of cognitive stimulation throughout the day. So, even something like you're talking to your friend, you're organizing your closet, maybe you're working or volunteering. There's already a lot of variety that most people are getting, but kind of recognizing and expanding that variety is what's going to be most important for protecting the brain. So whether or not that includes reading is up to you. I hope that was
Thanks,
helpful.
Rosie. Thank you. What do you do if your doctor says there are no medications for dementia treatments? Um, I'm going to be very blunt. Your doctor is wrong. Now it depends on the type of dementia. So there could be other factors at play that I'm not aware of. But if we're just looking at Alzheimer's, there's no medication that fixes it. There's no medication that just stops it, heals it, makes it all go away. There are medications that are very helpful. There are medications that can help to slow decline. There are medications that can preserve your existing cognitive function for a longer period of time than they would without the medication. Um, there are also medications that can help with symptom management. So we think of dementia as, specifically memory and thinking changes, but there are a lot of other things that can happen with dementia too, like anxiety and depression. And so there are medications that can help with those types of symptoms. So um, I would need more information, certainly, and I am not a doctor. If your doctor is unable to help you, you could request a referral to a specialist. There are continuing education materials that our center provides that are specifically for doctors that talk about best practices for medications and diagnosis and things like that. They're even on our YouTube channel if your doctor has time to browse those. It is unfortunately very, very common, especially for primary care doctors, to just not know um, what to do with dementia, and that is why our center is working really, really hard to educate primary care providers and give them tools and resources. They're extremely overloaded. They've got so much, our primary care providers are so busy. They've got so much on their plates. And so we are really working to make it more accessible for them to more easily diagnose quickly, and provide the necessary medications and refer when necessary and all of that. So um, again, I don't know any of the details of the situation, but generally there are medications that are very helpful, and it is important to start them quickly once you know something is going on with Alzheimer's. So I would ask for more support on that. You could ask for a second opinion. You could ask for a referral to a specialist, like a neurologist, if you feel that perhaps this isn't within your doctor's area of expertise. Um, what is something we should stop now to help? Is fatty foods the biggest factor? Um, no, generally, we're not trying to limit fatty foods. We want to choose healthier fats like nuts and seeds and olive oil, avocados, but we're not necessarily trying to avoid fat across the board. Um, I prefer to focus more on things that we can add in than things that we should stop. But if I had to pick one thing, I would say sugary, high sugar foods. So really sugary processed foods. Soda, for sure. If you're drinking just regular soda with any frequency, that would be a really big one to reduce or discontinue. Um, or other things that are, a significant source of sugar, those would be something to reduce food wise. How do you register for the next talk at the end of January? Rosie put the link in the chat with the registration for that. I think we already got to the cooked veggie question. And Rosie reposted some of the links to sign up for those classes. So um, hopefully everybody saw those. Okay. Question about the sitting break. I think I already addressed that one, but if you can't do more, try to get at least 2 minutes. If you can do more than that, great. But if not, then every 20 to 30 minutes, getting up for 2 minutes is great. Um, even sometimes that can be really hard. I have a desk job, and I know it's really hard for me to interrupt my work, especially if I have a ton of meetings, to get up and move around. So do what you can, even if it's every hour. That is better than nothing. That is better than sitting in the same spot for 4 hours straight. Are these helpful for someone already diagnosed with Alzheimer's? Yes. And I think we talked about that. I think we talked about the 40s question too. So I think we are good there. Can you share the seafood link for salmon? Yeah, I think, Rosie, do you mind posting the seafoodwash.org? I think if I post it, I'm going to lose my spot in the questions. and I don't want to lose my spot.
Yeah.
I think she's talking about, or I think this person is talking about seafoodwatch, .org. Steaming veggies is absolutely fine. Oh, Annabelle posted, thank you for sharing that, the seafoodwatch.org. Um, how long can you keep veggies in the fridge and still get the full benefit of their vitamins? That's going to vary depending on the veggie. So some last quite a bit longer than others. Generally, the fresher your produce is, the better. Um, and there is some nutrient degradation over time, but I mean, as long as it's hasn't like gone bad, you're still getting nutrient benefit from that. You're still, I mean, maybe not the 100% benefit, but I'd say you're still getting, at least 75%. That is my intuition. I have not looked up specifically like how many days along, what percentage does produce lose those nutrients. But remember, different vitamins and minerals degrade at different rates, different things cause that degradation. So light, oxygen, and heat tend to cause some of those changes, and it just depends on what it is. So our minerals are going to be fine. They're not going anywhere. Vitamin C may be more likely to degrade faster. Certain B vitamins will degrade faster. So don't stress over it. Don't overcomplicate it. If it's still good in your fridge, eat it. It's still providing a lot of benefit. If you know if you're trying to really, really optimize things, then getting fresh, locally grown produce from your farmer's market that is, picked a few days ago and eating it relatively quickly is going to be the highest nutrient value, as well as frozen produce. Freezing preserves the nutrients really well, and it's typically frozen at its peak. And so we get a lot of nutrients that way. But any veggie is better than no veggie. So don't stress over it. Don't overthink it. Just eat those fruits and veggies. But those are some things to maximize those nutrients. I understand meetings are virtual, but are they all pre-recorded? They will be. So the live classes for Brain Health Bootcamp will be recorded on the day that they occur, and then the recording will be posted later for you to watch, usually same day or next day. Um, does walking count as moderate exercise? That depends on how fast you're going, and it is completely relative to the person. So if somebody who is a runner and runs marathons and they have a really high level of fitness, if they go for a walk, they're not going to get to a moderate level of heart rate wise very easily. Um, but somebody who is newer to exercise, or if you're really pushing yourself and walking briskly for you, then yes, that counts as moderate exercise. So the way you can think about it is by using the talk test. So if you can talk but not sing, you could have a back and forth conversation with somebody, but you're breathing a little too hard to be able to give a speech. Couldn't teach this class, couldn't sing a song, couldn't give a speech, but you could go back and forth with somebody in conversation. We would consider that to be a moderate level of exertion. If you have a fitness tracker that measures heart rate, that is a really easy way to do it. That's typically what I do, but you don't have to have that. You can just kind of gauge your level of exertion based on your breathing rate when you're walking. Um, Alzheimer's runs in my family. What do you recommend I should get tested with? I am 52 right now. Um, as Rosie mentioned, you can test your genetics if you want. Um, that may or may not give you much information. You already know you have a family history, so you already know that you're at higher risk, and that'll be the case regardless of whether or not you are positive for that ApoE4 gene. But it may give you a little more clarity to get that tested. Otherwise, unless you see cognitive changes happening, um, there aren't really tests that you would do to sort of get ahead of it that I'm aware of. It's still really, really dialing in your lifestyle, and focusing on more of those cardiometabolic risk factors. So, like your cholesterol and your triglycerides, your blood sugar, your A1C and insulin, and all of those types of things that are going to be the most impactful right now. Um, and certainly talk to your doctor and ask if they recommend anything, but those are what I would focus on, unless you're already noticing some changes. Um, does reading novels, magazines, etc., improve cognitive ability? I think we talked about that already, so I'm gonna leave that one. Um, okay, how many? Okay, I'll keep going. I'm happy to keep going with questions. Grace, I don't feel free to cut it off. I know it looks like we have 20, I've got like 20 some questions left here. I'm happy to stick around. I love all the questions, but I know we're 15 minutes over. So,
I
totally
would
up to
say
you, Grace.
let's give it, let's take an additional 5 minutes to answer what we can, and then we
Mhm.
want to respect people's time, and then we will, all the links will be sent out. So if your question is to have a link reposted, that will go out to you when we send the recording. But yeah,
Mhm.
hopefully we can answer a few more questions, and then we will wrap it up at now. I've been talking, so we will say 11:21.
Okay, sounds great. Um, okay, question about early diagnosis is important, but I'm concerned that discussion of dementia with a doctor can impact insurance coverage, such as long-term care coverage or being referred prematurely to DMV. That is a very valid concern, and one that a lot of people have. They legally cannot deny you medical insurance coverage, but long-term care insurance coverage is um, a concern that a lot of people have. And I don't have a really good answer for you on things that you could do to get around that concern. I feel like we have a weekly webinar in our YouTube channel that might have addressed this. Um, I'll take a look and feel free to email us and you ask this question via email. And I'll see if I can find that video for you that went into that. I have not heard of premature referral to the DMV being an issue. Usually there's testing involved with um, determining if somebody needs to lose their driver's license, but that may vary case to case. So I'm not sure, but early diagnosis is very important in terms of being able to address things quickly, being able to get those medications started quickly. We do have a documentary about early diagnosis and sort of early stages of dementia that is I believe it's on our website. It's definitely on our YouTube channel. I think it's on our website. Rosie, maybe correct me if I'm wrong. So that might be something that you might be interested in as well. Sorry, I wasn't really able to provide a good answer on that, but feel free to email email me and we'll see if I can find that video. Um, okay, looking through. The online brain exercises that I mentioned that were part of the Pointer study are called Brain HQ. No affiliation with us whatsoever. They have a website. There is a like monthly fee that they charge for that. We don't use them in our program. It is absolutely not necessary to pay for brain exercises to support your brain. There are a million other ways that you can support your brain, your cognitive function without doing those things. But if you like that kind of structure and you enjoy those things, that website is just do a Google search for Brain HQ. I don't know what the exact URL is, but the company is Brain HQ. Um, which neurologist do you go to? Some reference to them would be helpful. I do not have like a specific neurologist to recommend. There are many, 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 many. Unfortunately, there are not enough. Um, the neurologists in the KU health system are, going to be a little bit more familiar with directly getting people into our memory care clinic if needed, but you don't have to go to our memory care clinic to be treated. A regular neurologist can often help you with that. And if your primary care provider has the training for it, you don't always have to go to a neurologist either. But if they're not trained on that specifically, then asking them for a referral is probably going to be the best way to go. But I don't have a specific neurologist to request for you to request a referral to. It's just, whoever your doctor recommends. In my opinion, the best way to find a new doctor of any specialty is to ask around friends and family and find somebody whose personality is a good match for you, whose bedside manner is a good match for you, their approach. Try to ask other people in your community who they like and who they've seen, and you may have better luck that way than just getting a referral to whoever's available at a large neurology practice, which is also fine if you don't know anybody. But for me, the relationship that I have with my physicians is important. And so I like to ask around and try to find somebody who I feel like is going to be a good fit before I get started with somebody. Okay, we are at time. I know we didn't get to all the questions. I'm so sorry. I love that there are so many questions. Um, Feel free to email us if you have further questions. And again, we've got usually monthly free webinars. That are LEAP specific. We've got other free webinars that are every single week. We've got a brain health boot camp starting up tomorrow. So lots and lots of ways to stay connected with us. And thank you so much for listening to me talk for an hour and a half. It was lovely to be here. Thank you to the Johnson County Library for inviting me to speak. It's been fun. Thank you, Grace, for hosting.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rachel, for this really informative presentation. This was really great. So as a reminder, we will send out this recording along with all of the links, and the recording will be available on our YouTube channel and on our website within 2 weeks. Thank you guys so much for attending.